Oh, there was no question. We had to catch up with this guy when we found out that Rodney Watson was going into the Hall of Fame. He worked alongside Rodney as an assistant here. And, of course, when he became the head coach here for the Salukis for the first time in his career as a head coach, he had Rodney stay on as his assistant and, of course, still really good friends. It's Matt Painter, the head coach of the Purdue basketball program, joins us to talk about R-Dub going into the Hall of Fame. Coach, we really appreciate the time for you when you first heard that R-Dub, Rodney Watson, was going into the Hall of Fame. What was your initial reaction?
Well, obviously, I was excited, well deserved. He worked really hard for that program, was very loyal to Coach Herron, was very loyal to Coach Weber. And a lot of people don't always understand like that's a tough transition because, you want to be loyal to who you work for. And then when you're out of a job, and you're trying to stay on a staff, like, and you don't know the person, like it's difficult. But like he was a godsend, for us. Like he knew all the angles, he knew everything at SIU, knew everybody at SIU. And it helps you. It helps you from an academic standpoint. It helps you from from a booster standpoint. It helps you, but from a basketball standpoint, he really knew the league. He had good relationships with our players, like with administration, and then just worked really really hard to learn Coach Weber's system, and was just very loyal. And then to be able to obviously work with me when I was just there for just 1 year, but then also Chris Lowry. To just think about four different coaches, the impact that he had on the program, and I always compare it to the impact Bruce Weber had on Purdue. Bruce was at, Purdue for 18 years. They won 6 Big Ten titles when Bruce was the assistant at Purdue. And then that impact, that Coach Watson had, you just think of the success that Coach Herron had, 7 straight postseasons, 3 of them being, 3 straight NCAAs. Coach Weber going to an NIT, going to 2 NCAAs. We went to 1 NCAA when I was there as the head coach. Chris went to, I think, 3 NCAAs and then 1 NIT. I mean, that's a lot of success. Well, he's the common denominator. I don't know how good he is in math and if he can understand that, but like he's the common denominator. And so he had a big hand in it and, didn't want any of the credit. And I think that's the way it happens sometimes as an assistant. You do a lot, then all of a sudden they're like, oh boy, that head coach, man, he did this, he did that. When in reality, the assistants do it. And when I was there and with Coach Weber, like it was always about us. It was always about everybody working really hard together and making it a players program. But just happy for him, just well deserved. For his wife, Carol, for the whole family, for everybody in SIU. I think everybody, gives a tip of the hat to him on this one because he put in a lot of work for this program and did a lot of really good things.
When you think of great traits that Rodney had, especially that made him a Hall of Famer, Coach Painter, what were some of those traits, and especially traits that you still hold on to and try to find and hire in guys that are still on your staff at Purdue?
Yeah, just the loyalty is, I think, where it starts. And the other thing is just he was always positive about. Now, I shouldn't say always. No one's always positive, but he was just a positive guy. Like things would go, and I'd be like, "Oh my goodness!" Like, California's going off into the ocean here, and he would always be like, "Ah, it's no big deal. We've dealt with stuff like this before. Like, just move on. Like, just deal with it and kind of move on." And he was great at dealing with players. He got the big picture of kind of that time of the year, like, how things get handled. And for us, it was great. Like it was just great because he allowed that transition for Coach Weber to start with, to be a smooth one. Cause if you can't have a start, your career in terms of like having success in a program, just not going to happen. I think that's where he was probably the most impactful, is that he helped us at that start, get the ball rolling, understanding the league, understanding the school. So many people take over jobs and they're really good coaches and they're really good people, but they don't know the league. They don't know that institution. They just don't know the things that you learn through experience because they haven't had any, but yet they've had to have success or they wouldn't have gotten the job. They take that success like the environment doesn't matter, the league doesn't matter, and it does. All those things matter. But basketball and coaching basketball can sometimes be an inexact science. Recruiting definitely is an inexact science. So kind of being able to deal with that, like that got Coach Weber going like that. Like just to get to that NIT in that second year, like was big. Like that was big for us. That was big to kind of get, okay, we've gotten to postseason here. Then we had a tough year the following year, and then we were able to get to two tournaments, two NCAA tournaments after that. But Rodney's the best, as you know. After you've been working with him here for some years.
You can only imagine. I have a lot of stories being on the road with Rodney already, just going into year 3 with him on the radio side. I can only imagine the stories that you have with R-Dub on the road. What are some of your favorite memories, if there is one that you have, of Coach Watson?
Yeah. So Rodney was actually like he wasn't a bigger character than the rest of the people. So for me to tell their stories, man, he's probably got tenfold stories on me. So, probably like one of the things that jumped out to me is like Rodney can go in and out of being in shape. I know he's in shape right now. And like he got with one of our guys, Josh Warren, and a couple days they ran like it seemed like 12 to 15 miles in a day, 3 different times. And Rodney was on one of those kicks where he was running. And I was like, man, Rodney, I don't know if like this makes sense to keep doing this with him. Oh, no, you got to break him. You got to break him. I was just like, well, he's 6'9", about 260. I said, I think you're going to break him and he's going to go back to St. Louis. He goes, well, if he gets through it, we know we got a good player. He goes, but if he's out of shape, he's not a good player out of shape. He goes, so we got to get him and see if this was for him. And he was right. And he got him. And Josh had a good career and was a very, very functional player. But like, man, he was running like 12 to 15 miles with him for like 2 or 3 days and like in a week's period. And he's like, it's no big deal. We'll get this done. And like one of those times where it's just like, it just seemed bizarre to me, like whatever, but it was the right thing. Like it was the right thing. He had to go after him and get his attention and get him into shape and let him know that like, you want to be a player or don't you? Like, you got to make a decision. You're the one that's, keeps getting in and out of shape here. So that was always one that stuck with me.
One of the biggest things that I have heard from Rodney during our time together has been his appreciation for Southern Indiana. I know this is about him going into the Saluki Hall of Fame. He went into the Southern Indiana Hall of Fame last year. But he said, Luke, there is just a special feeling of that place that says you're our head coach for our first time. And that feeling never leaves. Coach Painter, you are no doubt a Purdue guy. You played there. You, of course, are now a longtime coach. There was so much great success and more success to come. But Southern was the first school. SIU was the first one that said, we're going to hire you as our head coach. What does that still mean to you today?
Yeah, it was a very surreal moment because like earlier when Coach Weber announced he was going to Illinois, he said, you're going to kind of like stay back here because, they're going to interview for the head coaching job. I was like, oh, that's cool. But I was like, hey, if I got to go to Illinois, then I got to go to Illinois. It's not that big a deal. And I really wanted to be the head coach at Southern Illinois. But I also understood that, just like Coach Herron made it a better job, Coach Weber made it a better job. And I just said, well, maybe there's some candidates out there that's, that would be better than me for SIU. I think it always helps that you have the experience of being there at that school. So when you take over as an assistant, it's a pretty smooth transition. The transition that's tough is the guy we just coached has never been a head coach outside of Purdue day camp, and so like that piece of it for me, when like that happened and like later in the day, he says, I'm not going to interview anybody. I'm going to hire you. Like that was a big deal. That was a big deal for me and for Paul Kowalczyk and everybody there at Southern Illinois to think enough of me to hire me. And very surreal now more than anything because like I've been at Purdue for 20 years, but I don't have these 20 years without Southern Illinois. So very grateful, for the opportunity. But it's something I've always kept in contact with, the people at Southern Illinois, and always rooting for the people at Southern Illinois. And I still order my 17th Street barbecue sauce. Like I got two huge, one at my lake house and one at home, like these big canisters, like whatever. And anytime I get it, and someone say, "Hey, try this barbecue sauce out," or whatever. I said, "Yeah, that's pretty good." I go, "But this right here is the best. This is the best." They go, "Where'd you get this from?" And I always tell them. They always order it, and they always come back to me and say, "Hey, you're not mistaken there. That is the best." But no, Southern Illinois is a special place, man. I owe a lot to them, and very grateful for everything they did for me and the opportunities they gave me.
Coach, before I let you go, Rodney would be extremely frustrated with me if I didn't ask you a question like this. How do you feel about your Cubs as we come down the stretch here?
Yeah, they're definitely going to make the playoffs. Like they're probably going to be, in that 4 or 5 game. Right now, I think like trying to get to where they have, that home field advantage in that 4 or 5 wild card. Right now, it'd be the Padres or the Dodgers. So I went to the game last night. So I've been to 23 Cubs games this year. So I'm 17-6. And so my wife's actually been to 2 more than me. She's 19-6. So like, yeah, I just their pitching since the All-Star break has been, especially their starting pitching, has been really good. Has been really good. Their hitting, the first half of the season was fabulous, and it kind of like flip flopped a little bit. But they lost Justin Steele. They lost Shota for about 6, 7 weeks. Taillon's been on the injured reserve. Matthew Boyd has been really good. Colin Ray's been, very good in terms of like, they didn't even know if he'd be in the rotation to start the season. They've gotten Assad to come back, who's had a couple of really good outings there. Shota is fantastic. Matthew Boyd has been fantastic. So kind of with that, just trying to kind of work their way through, knowing that, Cade Horton's probably like their third pitcher. He's been one of the best pitchers in baseball the second half of the season. So they got 3 guys I think they feel comfortable with, like who they would go to if they can get past the wild card. If they have to have a 4th starting pitcher, they have to work through it. They've had some consistency. Brad Keller has been very consistent in the bullpen. Palencia's had a couple outings here where he struggled, but for the most part, he's been really good. Thielbar has been a very good lefty reliever. The guys they have taken so far with pitching, right at the trade deadline, they haven't got going yet, but to their defense, like they haven't had, enough innings. So like you want to give them, unlike most fans, you want to give them a break. Like it drives me nuts listening to the Cubs fans on Twitter and the things that they say. And I always take a step back and be like, hey, people say this that are Purdue fans, like about me, like all the time. I just said, like, they're fools. Like Craig Counsell is one of the best managers in baseball. Like, I mean, and they just like every little decision he makes, like they rip him. I'm like what's the man supposed to do? Like he makes good moves. You're not going to be perfect. Like it's baseball, crying out loud. Like things happen, crazy things happen. But I'm excited. Like if you look at their outfield, you look at their infield, you look at their defense, like up the middle, like their defense, second, short, center, like is best in baseball. I mean, unbelievable. Like Carson Kelly's had a good year for them. Reese McGuire has done a good job when Amaya's, has been out. Matt Shaw is top 5 rookie in the league. Cade Horton's probably going to get the National League Rookie of the Year. Kyle Tucker's, had a slump, but like he's going to be great. PCA is one of the, future stars of the game. And then you got like Hap, who's been a Gold Glover, he's been really good here last 2, 3 weeks. So you can see that I'm on it. I'm going through the whole lineup. Michael Bush has been fabulous. So like, no, I'm a diehard, man. I love it. I try to keep things in perspective. Like I try not to be that fan. I try to take it from my own experiences and be like, hey, it's different. I don't think I could be the losing. Even the most successful teams in baseball are going to lose 40% of the time. Like I don't know how they take it. Like when we lose, like we'll lose 30% of the time, and like I'm just like beside myself. 25% of the time. Like the more you win, the more the losses are hard. It makes it impossible. Like it just does. So I don't know how. And then like Craig's got to do media before and after every game. And like you throw playoffs and spring training on top of that, like that's nuts, man. That is nuts. But no, they're going in the right direction. Like if you look where they've been, like they're going in the right direction. They just got off to such a hot start when they've had a little inconsistency. I think like people want to, freak out about it, but when in reality they're kind of right where they should be. I think the Brewers have really overachieved, and their pitching has been so good, and they got great speed, and they have a good team. Pat Murphy's done a really good job with that group. They've really done a good job. But like I like the Cubs' chance in the playoff. Like I just think like I like Shota, I like Matthew Boyd, I think Cade Horton, but it's going to come down to they got to have more timely hitting. They put guys in really good positions, and earlier in the year they did a really good job of hitting with runners in scoring position. They just haven't done as well. What he's supposed to do as the manager, like go in there and yell at him and say, "Hey, you guys got to slug more." And when someone's on second and third, damn it, hit us some doubles. Like fans don't quite understand the complexity, like going to Wrigley Field 25 times this year for us and being able to see them like up close or whatever. You really appreciate how good they are, but you also appreciate how hard the game is. Like there's a bunch of bozos out there that can make a 3-pointer. You know what I mean? Like there's not a lot of people out there that can hit sliders and split fingers and things like that. That's impossible. When you can sit behind home plate and watch some of those guys deal, like, man, that is a chore to be able to hit some of that pitching. So you really appreciate, if you take it all in, just like how good those guys are.
I'll say one thing's for certain. Pat Hughes and Ron Coomer, they need you on the radio broadcast.
Hey, there you go. I love like driving and listening to them. Like they do a great job. And then Boog and JD, like, you know what I mean? Like when I'm not at the games, if I have a chance, like tonight, like I'm at the house by myself, so like we'll have it on a couple TVs, and we'll be ready to roll, man. We'll be ready to go.
Coach, it's going to be so great to see you on Saturday at Ross-Ade. We appreciate the time talking about our good friend Coach Watson, and can't wait to see you and your team also play throughout the year. We appreciate the time, Coach.
Cool, man. I'll see you this weekend.